everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Person Behind the Pen. We are having an extremely cringe-worthy moment. My internet is super laggy, so hopefully it's just me seeing myself in slow motion and not you. But I am Nick. I am the founder of Guiding Brilliant Writers Publishing, and I am your host. This show, The Person Behind the Pen, was started a little over a year ago, and its purpose was to feature all of the writers with the publishing company. I am happy to say that after the launch of our next anthology, coming later on this month, we would be looking at about 150 writers served. So I want to thank all of you here today. In one way or the other, you have contributed to the success of Guiding Brilliant Writers, and I want you to know that it does not go unnoticed. It is very appreciated. So take a couple of minutes to welcome everyone that's coming in. Our friend Jackie Halberg, it's so wonderful to see you here. Joe Cullen, wonderful to see you, my friend. Joe is actually going to be sharing his chapter in We Choose to Be More Than Our Diagnoses, Volume 2. Leslie Favek, Trini in the house, awesome to see you. Thank you so much for being here, my friend. Haha, for once I'm not jelly of the weather. Trinidad, it's about 80 degrees in New York today. There is my neighbor Stephen Eng, right out here on Long Island. Looking forward to meeting you soon, so it's definitely going to be time to hang out. All right, so couple quick things before we bring our dear friend Leslie Flowers up. Leslie Flowers is a 14-time author. She is also my gold standard line editor and a very, very good friend of mine. I am delighted to have her with us today. Before we dive in, I want to personally thank her for her friendship and the work that she's put in. Right now, she's working on the line editing of The Mask, releasing in July by Dr. Steve Hudgens. This would be the third in the Mosaic Family series. Today, we congratulate Dr. Hudgens on the launch of the prequel to Piece by Piece by Blended Experience of a Mosaic Family, which was published by Guiding Brilliant Writers September of last year. Today, the journey, not the destination, is the prequel to Piece by Piece. It is available today on Amazon for $4.99 for the Kindle and $16.99 for the paperback. If you have experienced life and come through it feeling as if you're holding a bunch of shattered pieces in your hands, this is a book you want to read. It is about bearing witness to your journey and understanding that through healing, these pieces now become a beautiful mosaic of your life. So please go to my wall and check out that post from this morning and support Dr. Steve Hudgens as well as Guiding Brilliant Writers Publishing. I want to say hello to our neighbor right over there in New Jersey. Hello, Meryl Cass. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know the weather is probably as gorgeous there as it is in New York. At least I hope it is. And I look forward to seeing you soon. I really hope that when we do our very first book signing later this year in New York City, that Meryl, you're going to make sure and come on down. All right. So let me start by sharing a bit about Leslie with everyone. Let's start by getting my eyes on. Leslie Flowers is a trailblazing thought leader, educator, and author whose 13th book, which was this very contribution that I'm reading from, The Legacy Chronicles, A Letter to My Family, marks a powerful milestone in a literary journey that began in 2009 with a career spanning corporate publishing, entrepreneurship, board leadership, and women's empowerment. Leslie has spent decades gathering aspiring and emerging leaders to realize their full potential. Her work is grounded in a lifelong devotion to learning and personal growth. Leslie's signature approach blends timeless principles with practical application, drawing deeply from Dr. Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. As the creator of the 12 Laws of Achievement, she has developed a proven, repeatable framework that empowers individuals to elevate self awareness, set and achieve meaningful goals, and lead with clarity and confidence. Whether through her books, broadcasts, mastermind cycles, or transformational workshops, Leslie's voice is one of wisdom, resilience, and unwavering belief in human potential. Her legacy is one of igniting purpose, cultivating courage, and championing the brilliance within others. One leader, one story, one breakthrough at a time. Just those last few lines tells you really and truly the deep meaning our friendship holds. Leslie shares my goal of storytelling, and more than that, she shares her years of wisdom in coaching and mindset, often keeping me grounded when I have multiple projects going on and I'm trying to also navigate a very happy personal life. So I am about to introduce her, but I will share just this quote at the front of the book that she will be sharing with us from today. The book is called Champion 21st Century Women, Guardians of Wealth and Legacy. So, Leslie shares a quote in here by Eleanor Roosevelt. Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people. We gain strength and courage and confidence by each experience in which we really stop to look fear in the face. We must do that which we think we cannot. Happiness is not a goal, it is a byproduct. And I know my friends out there know me, and if you don't, welcome to the show. But it is certainly a byproduct to this thing called happiness, of doing that thing that you love so very much, that fills your purpose, that is your strength, that is your superpower. And with that, I am about to bring up this amazing human being.
Hello.
Hi, dear friend, how are you?
I'm wonderful and so excited to be here to share a little bit about this part that nobody really knows about. I was realizing that when I picked this book that I don't talk about this very much at all, but it's really I'm excited to do it. I'm excited. So thank you
I'm
for having me.
excited to hear all about it. You know, when I think a bit about the topic you're going to speak about, women and the wage gap, this book was written over 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And still, this topic is very relevant. And even with the needle moving in the right direction, I'm sure it will continue to be for a very, very long time. This book is one that needs to be passed down through the generations of women in our families. So please go ahead and share with us anything, everything. How are you? What's going on in North Carolina? Why did you choose this book today? I want to know it all.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to thank everybody for being here. I realized that I had never read any of this book, Champion, and why I wrote it. Okay, Stephen, you'll have to convert that into Fahrenheit for me. That sounds like I don't know what the temperature is, but it's hot in North Carolina. Um, so once I learned in 2008 what was missing in my studies. I had already been in leadership development for 10 years. Did a little quantum physics, metaphysics, transformational therapy. But it was when The Secret came out in 2007 and I opened up a meetup group called The Secret Society. And the whole world was taken by storm. I'm sure you guys remember. I think it was 2007 And the way the story went was that the church, and we don't know how true it is, but the church had kept what was in the secret a secret because of the power it gave the elders or those at the top, that the common folk, if you will, the rest of us, um, didn't need access to. So it was a bit of a power play, if we believe that's true. So what I went then, I knew I was directed in following my intuition after starting a meetup group and meeting every month with a whole bunch of people that loved this stuff. Right? We just had a ball studying all the people in this movie. And a few months later, through a period or a series of messages, I committed myself to go and learn and be certified by Bob Proctor. Now, Bob Proctor, who passed away just a few years ago, was the leading world thought leader on Napoleon Hill's classic Think and Grow Rich. It is still the number 2 bestseller of all time, second only to the New Testament. It has the exact roadmap to millions, whatever it is you want, but it's a thick book. And in today's time, people aren't really interested in a lot of content. They want, pretty fast stuff. So I was working with a women's group, and after I was certified in this work, I realized I know what's missing for women because the wage gap, this was in 2014 when I wrote the book, there's a big disparity. And my programs built on top of Think and Grow Rich were primarily for women to teach them how to be chameleons in 21st century business, to start with the easy stuff. Because I realized that our whole history has been at home, being the homemaker, the nurturer, and the skills and the behaviors and even the words were very different than the context of 21st century business. And I had been in corporate for 40 years, so I knew what I was looking at. And I realized that's what's missing. So when you get into a study, right, you got to get into it a little bit to figure out what are the pieces that if they were added, it would make a big difference, right? I knew right away that this certification and this training in mindset was the difference maker because it all starts with what you think, and that's the only thing we can control, period. But it is how you intentionally think that will change everything for you if you're intentional. So I'll stop here in a second. I just want to say that what propelled me to write this book, it was originally written for a different reason. So I'll stop there and see if you want me to go on or whether you have a question or anything's come up for you, Nicole, or anyone in the audience. Hey, Coach Carrie.
No, I would love to know the reason because, I mean, in my mind, I have a reason. But, especially when I think today, although women's roles have changed to some extent, there most certainly still continues to be that wage gap between men and women, what women earn out there in the world. It is still not equalized. And I'm curious to know why it is you wrote the book. And when I consider you had 40 years in corporate and studied with Bob Proctor, the meshing of the two, it's not just studying something because you enjoy it, it spoke to you, you want to change your own life, you want to build a successful coaching business to earn money. You had a lifetime of experience
Mm.
observing, living this type of lifestyle. So please, well, you.
So I'll tell you a little story. So picture this. Now I was certified and started doing masterminds, 8-week masterminds with men and women. Each week we'd meet. I would teach them the principles of success. Right? We had retreats every quarter. I mean, I was really active. Actually, I've done 65 business quarters, and probably 50 of them were all in person every week. Sometimes 2 or 3 a week. I was a nutcase. And I became, and I never charged in the beginning because I was so grateful to everybody who dared to let me be one page ahead of them each week, because I didn't know Think and Grow Rich from anything else. But I had the opportunity to read in advance and follow the guideline, etc. So some of the people that were in my masterminds did them over and over and over again. And I want you to picture a beautiful summer evening, and my dining room, which was really large, was facing the pond, and there were 10 people, husbands and wives, drinking wine, enjoying dinner that I had prepared for them. And these were my mastermind clients and friends. And we began talking. And so often an idea pops out into a conversation, right? Which is really what masterminding is. You get an idea for me, I get an idea for you. And the idea was, is Chris said, Leslie, you should write the book. I said, let me go check the website, Think and Grow Rich for Women. So you hadn't heard a word about this. There was no book, Think and Grow Rich for Women. All right. I excused myself from the dining room table while everybody was enjoying coffee and dessert now, and went and bought all three websites. .com, .net, and .org. Think and Grow Rich for Women. Now, what I was going to do was take Think and Grow Rich and put it into a modern day form for women to follow, and that's what Champion is. That's how it started out. So everything I knew about women and business and the mind and everything I knew up to that point was going to be in this book, and it was going to be Think and Grow Rich for Women. But here's where the story gets interesting. So if you know me, you know that I am all about being truthful. Sometimes I have to ask ChatGPT to word something for me in advance so it doesn't land like being too tough, right? It's just my nature. Well, it is my nature, and I'm aware that I can come off as brash sometimes, but it's always the truth. So what do? I have the outline of the book, I work on it, and then I reach out to Bob Proctor. Now, I didn't get to him because he was my mentor, and I wanted his approval of this book. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. And I did, and I got to his executive assistant. She said, well, go ahead, send me the outline, and I'll check in with Bob, and I'm ready to go because it's all outlined. The book is in good shape. The next day, I get a phone call from the Napoleon Hill Foundation and their lawyer warning me that I better not write this book. And, yeah, you hear me. And they said a woman lawyer after me. And day after day after day, this woman called me and browbeat me into selling her back, the Napoleon Hill Foundation, those three sites. Now, I wasn't too bright, and I am a bit of a Pollyanna. I could have charged him anything, but I sold him back all three sites for
Oh,
50.
don't say that.
Okay, well, I say it being vulnerable. I'm a Pollyanna, and I'm proud of it. I try not to be cynical. I do my best to know that you're doing your best. And I'm met with that, right? Because I'm met with who I'm being. So if I'm trustworthy, I'm expecting you to be, and you will or you won't be. So anyway, eventually I sold back the three sites, not being smart enough. They scared me. I didn't have any money. I was on Social Security, just doing what I love, teaching all this, right? And I had a friend who does IP work, a very good friend, and he went into the trademarks to see what they had done. They were scared by this little old woman on Social Security who wanted to write a book for women based on Napoleon Hill's work. Now, my next step was to go to the Napoleon Hill Foundation. After Bob Proctor approved it, then I was going to go to the next powers. I was going to do it right. Anyway, my friend who is an IP lawyer, he said, Leslie, you're not going to believe what they did. They went back in and backdated that nobody and that I could not write anything about it. So the amount of money that they invested to shut me up, right? So you would think then that I would just give up on it. Oh, hell no. I continued on. I just gave it another name because all my work was with women and teaching them first how to look at their physical being and entity in business. Because, women, we at that time, we had a lot of cleavage, we wore a lot of jewelry, a lot of makeup, a lot of hair, a lot of wiggling and jiggling and foot crossing. But if you look at the context of business networking, this was pre-COVID certainly. If you look at how men behave, they actually set the context. They're in business casual. They stand with their feet about shoulder length apart. Their hands are down by their side. And they don't tell the whole story. But we women, we've been fixing boo-boos for 5,000 years. So we can tell you the whole story why this happened. So I could see right away that the easiest thing I could do was identify the physical behaviors that women bring into the workplace that clash. Right. So what you're wearing, you want to be like a chameleon in business, because what happens is, and what was happening is, both male and female business leaders stop listening to the woman who has all the jewelry, has all the hair, crossing the legs, hands on hips, lipstick in the middle of a meeting. I mean, that is how it was in the 70s and 80s when women came into the workplace. They were a bull in a china shop. So no one was listening to them. And that's what the first chapter in this book is about.
How interesting is that you share that? I mean, like, it makes me think back to some of the movies I looked at, a little before my time. But, the women were often featured as, the secretaries and the this and the that. And they always were very pretty, if you will. And they always had that projection of, yes, the man being in charge, and you have that rare show where the woman comes out with all her spunk, and tries to take charge of everything, and just how she appears, honestly, compared to the other woman in the office situation. So I find this very interesting. Please go ahead.
Do you remember? You guys know the movie Mad Men, or the series Mad Men, right? Most people, it's about the 60s in corporate business. Let me know if you guys remember Mad Men. So if you, in that series, that was the 1960s business. It was the way it was because I looked exactly like the main guy's French wife. I was a rail. I had hair just like her. I sang and danced. And it was almost like looking at myself. And I was in business during those times. So I knew what it was like dealing with the patriarchy. And yes, you were pretty. You made yourself pretty, but you also had to fend off, right, the men, because that you were attractive. There was always this constant chase and battle of men going after women who were pretty. So it was like a lose-lose situation for us. We were navigating an environment that there was no way to win, right? And that's where you heard about people sleeping to get to the top. I mean, we were paid less, and people have different values at different degrees, and there are people who do this for money to feed their children. Now, I don't want to go down that road, but what I'm saying is that was a real depiction. So I knew I could change things. I knew I could change things, and that's what I did. And that's what I did for those years of women's groups. Navigating the wage gap, we knew that it wasn't going to be until the mid-century for women and men to earn the same. And this was what, 2014. You love Mad Men. So you know the woman that I'm talking about, the wife of John Hamm. That was how I looked. I'm not kidding. If you look at Aaron Gibson's video, the latest intro or the outro part, that is exactly her. And that's exactly who I was in the 60s.
I
So,
want to know
yeah.
how you took that woman and turned her, or started her on the path of turning into the woman that you are today, and helping all the women that you have helped over the years. Um, because I think that this is definitely the advice I still want to hear. And I am sure there are lots of women out there that want to hear it too. Is there a particular chapter in the book you plan on diving into with us, or are you just going to share knowledge with us?
Well, I mean, there's a lot in the first chapter, which is the women wealth and the wage gap. And there, so let's see, is it, yeah, the Mad Men is a hit. It was a miserable time. I'm looking at the first chapter to see what, by the way, thank you, Jackie, for purchasing the book. In the book, I outlined the different body languages that men have as opposed to women. So, for example, men stand a certain way, women stand a certain way. Men speak in bullet points, women are going to tell the whole story. So, the more of those things that a woman does without being aware, the fewer people pay attention to her. Now, there is a story that I tell in here about um, how these things happen, and I'll
Okay.
read it. I'll read it to you. It's okay.
Yes, and while you're reading the story, guys, the QR code just above Leslie is where you can go to get a copy of her book.
As you know, there's a lot of things in my writing that brings up the references, and one of my favorite stories is the hundredth monkey effect. Have you guys heard of that, or the hundredth monkey syndrome? Give us a thumbs up or a yes if you've heard of that. So, this is how collective consciousness works, and this is how we are going to change one person by one person. This is how it works. These things are working. Probably the biggest lesson I've learned in my life is that just because I don't understand how it works right now doesn't mean it doesn't work. So we need to be on an inquiry of possibilities of how it might work, and to look for empirical evidence and scientific evidence that these concepts do work. But anyway, this is one of my favorite stories. In 1952, Japanese scientists dropped sweet potatoes in the sand on a remote island inhabited by the Japanese macaw monkeys. They're known as the snow monkeys, by the way. The monkeys loved the sweet potatoes. The little ones learned to wash the sand off before eating them, all in pretty short order. Adult monkeys either learned from the little ones or just ate the potatoes with the sand. 30 years and 100 generations later, after practicing the washing off skills over time, suddenly baby monkeys were born already skilled in washing off the sand. And even better, monkeys born on the other islands also were born with a skill. Once I revisited this fascinating experiment, I saw that the cause of the gender wage gap and knew I had the solution. This was a pivotal moment in my career. The cause was men practicing for twice as many generations as the monkeys would ensure future generations of men born already having a set of skills for success in business. Hey, Felipe. The solution: distinguish those automatic and inherent male behavioral skills, make them simple and clear, teach them to women to leverage the same influence, play evenly with men. Oh, this is hard to read. Um, let's see. match the male personality in business while remaining 100% feminine, and be visible and credible. Oh, and because learning them is intentional, you have the leverage this and the skills to source your own success. So I knew I was onto something big because it started so easily. Well, what if um, you dressed a little differently, right? What if when you went to a networking event, you didn't do your hair up big as a woman, that you actually matched the context, that you wore business casual Friday work, that there was no plunging necklines, because that's where men are going to look, that you didn't go on and on and on. And that's when you see people in the group, their eyes glaze over when that woman, and I was that woman at one time. So, what you should know about me, though, is I was always the trailblazer. There was one story I have to tell you. I see Felipe's here. I think he will just love this story.
Because it is an interesting point that you raise. And even now, with so many women being in leadership, and yes, dress being somewhat more conservative to suit the more professional environment, there is also that side of, I guess, perhaps not judging on appearances. It's like tattoos in the workplace, or like, for example,
Mhm.
because I have tattoos in places that you can see them when I dress for work.
Right.
Um, so it's interesting, but as you say, generation to generation, men have been doing this much longer, right? So we
Yes.
as women have some catching up to do. And I look forward to the day when um, the wages are actually equalized as they should be, because women are putting as much into the work industry now than we ever were.
Yes. Yes. And I was a front runner. I will admit. My whole program started because I was in a women's group. We all invested. We spent time. We enjoyed ourselves. We supported each other. We bought each other's products. And then, bam, someone made some caustic remark about your friend. And you say to yourself, well, I don't want to be in this group, not with that kind of attitude. So then you leave that group. This is what happened to me a couple of times before I realized what was happening. People on different levels of awareness. Then you join another women's group, pay your money, spend the time, invest the time, support each other, and then somebody else says something ugly. So that's, sorry, you guys, I've got a bit of a fever. So that's when I realized I'm starting my own, and there'll be a list of agreements, and there's not going to be any of that stuff. But the story I was going to tell you, if I don't cough myself here, was there was this company in Durham, North Carolina called Motricity. Very innovative, very modern, lots of money in Research Triangle Park. There's a whole hotbed of investment in clinical research organizations, tons of work, really right between University of North Carolina, Duke University, and North Carolina State. There were jobs, there was research, all of this. Well, anyway, Motricity had this amazing building with lights in the floor when you walked in, but it was a good distance away from me. And the president of Motricity was looking for an executive assistant. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that in the triangle, over that decade, I was the best executive assistant. I'm not just saying that. I had the years. So, and the results. So I applied for the job. I'm working, but I applied for the job through an agency, a recruiting agency. They got me in. I drove all the way over there. I went to the first round of interviews, and they said, "Well, we'll be in touch." I said, "Well, aren't I going to meet the CEO today?" No, no, we have to go through a review. Thank you, Felipe. So this is a big deal. I mean, this is almost an hour away from my house. I've got two small kids. What am I doing here? I wanted that job because I knew I was the best. So I went back to the agency and I said, well, I couldn't get in. So they tried again. I went back out there for a second interview, got to the second level with a VP, I think, of HR, then nothing. Now, keep in mind, it's an hour and there's a walk from where you park. I mean, it was a huge deal, but I was the best. And I wanted to meet this guy. He was married to a former Miss America, right? It was a lot of notoriety around with this, and I wanted to be the one. And no one was going to stop me, right? That's the Sagittarius in me. So I went back to those guys and they said, we can't get through. So I went to another agency. They said, we're having the same problem. So with trying to get people up to the CEO to be interviewed, people were getting into the company, but they couldn't, hey, Melanie, they couldn't get up to the CEO. All right. So I sat down at my typewriter and I wrote a letter to the CEO. And it was return receipt request, right? It was overnight. I don't remember how we did it, but it got there the next day. And I basically said, hello, Mr. So-and-so. This will be your only opportunity to meet me. I am likely the best executive assistant in this area. And I have worked and come out there several times to try and meet with you and have never been passed on. I would like to offer an interview with me as your executive assistant, but I must hear from you within 24 hours or I withdraw my offer. Sent the letter. I said, damn it, I'm going to do this, right? And guess what? I got the call and I went and interviewed with him. He had no idea what was going on. And when I found out I'd have to be on 24/7, 365 with a BlackBerry at his beck and call, I decided I didn't want the job. So I went back to the recruiting company. I said, by the way, I got the interview on my own. Well, you never needed us, Leslie. Right. So that's who I am. I usually get in trouble for being the first one out of the gate. Right. But in this case, hundreds of women. I mean, I have 500 results, 400 of which are 100 are from corporate. Okay. The other 400 are entrepreneurs, franchise owners who set 12-week goals using my program. Quarter after quarter after quarter, there were 500 executed goals. This stuff works. Now I'm tired. Now I don't want to go for the money anymore. Now I'm just enjoying sharing what I know works for those who are ready. So there. Now you know something about me very few people know, especially that story about Think and Grow Rich for women.
Well, now the trailblazing, certainly comes into play. And you've just really been enjoying the stories. And it still comes down to so much of what you share in your shows with us on Fridays, Think and Grow Rich, as well as on Mondays. And that quote with Eleanor Roosevelt, that do that thing which we think we cannot. And it's still no different today than you need to be that person who can stand apart, right? If you don't take that extra edge to show who you are and what you're capable of. Hi, Christy. It's so nice to have you join us.
The truth is that it wasn't the job that I was after. It was winning.
Right. So whether it's applied to anything that you go after, it doesn't have to be a job. But, even the principles that you teach and what you no doubt share in this book for women who are navigating the wage gap situation still to this day. What advice would you give, for example, to a woman now in this day and age who is in a situation in a work environment where they keep being passed up for promotions that they are definitely qualified for? So let's say they work in a more male-dominated industry. Based on all that you have learned and what you've shared, is there any advice that you would give, let's say, a woman in that situation?
Yes, I'll tell you what I did with my career professionals. Thank you. Thank you, Felipe. I figured you'd like this stuff, right? Because I just went in both barrels, right? Here's what I did with the career people that were in my program. Okay, because their goals and their ability to be promoted is different than the goals of the entrepreneur or whatever, the franchise owner. So, here's an example of a career person. She was about, let's see, I think she was 37, or was she 47 and was making 37? Oh God. Okay, so this is one woman, right, who was changing jobs. It was near the dot-com era, and people were losing jobs faster than you could get them. There were layoffs in 20, 30, 40 people every quarter, and then they'd hire them back because there was a lot of money flowing there, and a lot of startups starting up with plenty of bucks, hire all the staff, and then the funding ran out or they couldn't get the next round of funding. So all those people were laid off. And around 2000, everybody realized, that it was not unusual to be laid off a number of times. Anyway, so she decided she was coming to Research Triangle Park and she wanted to enter clinical research organization. That's a CRO, and it's where you do all the backup work and the planning for clinical trials. There's lots of pharmaceuticals, right, and clinical research organizations in the park. Well, so here's what we did. She did 4 quarters, and here was the plan. The first 12 weeks, her goal was she was just starting at the company. She did get hired, but she wanted a 10% raise at the end of the first year. So the first thing we did, the first 12 weeks, her goal was to become the go-to person in her department, not only to do her work, but to offer to help anybody else, to get to know them, and to collect that to the point where at that time there were emails and communications sent to HR. And the supervisor of that department, oh, Lisa was so great. We really appreciate her coming from your department to help us. So that's the first quarter. All the letters of accolades. The second one was to get a certification. So to find out, no, wait a minute, was that the second one? Yeah, wait a minute. No, the second one was to meet a mentor in the company. That was the goal. So she went to all the luncheons, all the HR things that they had, and she arrived late to one. There was one seat left at one table toward the front, and she sat next to the vice president, who was a woman, who became her mentor. Okay, so that was the second quarter. Now she's got a file filled with accolades for her being kind and generous. Now she has a mentor. Then she went and got certified and began her PMP. And so by the time it came around for her year review, Lord have mercy, she went from $37,000 to $60,000 on her first review, way over what they were giving. In 1 year and 3 months after, she was hired away at $103,000. So
That is
that is
that is
that.
the proof in the pudding right there that you answered this question so well
Thank you.
and outlined the very intelligent and certainly doable steps in a 12-month period of a new job. I'm making notes. That's why I'm looking down. You positioned her to,
Yes, and when
you
you
know,
do this, when you sit with someone for 500 different goals, and each
right.
person you sit, that's Nelly Belly, and you sit with them and really figure out what it is they want. Now, this woman wanted a goal that, so each 12 weeks was a different goal. So by the time it was time for her to have a raise, she had exceeded everything. She had everything planned. Everybody knew her. She was the good guy. She did good work. She had a mentor in the company. There was no way they wouldn't reward her. So it was really, you could call those 4 quarters tasks to reach the big goal, or you could call each one of the quarters a unique goal. You can flip around the terms, but the point is, we built together for her a path that would have them be unable to say no.
Just brilliant. I love it. I wrote down positioning,
Me too.
team player. Um, she can wear different hats. She keeps upgrading her education, and she's networking within work. These are all such actionable steps. I mean, get the book, guys. The QR code is right above Leslie. I'm sorry, I have a very mischievous chief of staffy next to me doing all sorts of nonsense, but
Okay.
you better not bite the internet cable cord. Um, but do get the book. Dive right into it. The work in here is relevant. It will continue to be relevant because this is something that women from now till eons are going to have to learn. They're going to have to adapt to, and in this ever-changing, will continue to pivot and add, perhaps in another 10 years, Leslie will write a part two of this book for us and show us how much further. Listen, we would love to, and you're going to be here. I'm just calling it right now. But I want to thank you for coming on and for
Sure.
speaking about something um, different, right? You shared in the Legacy Chronicles about your life and as Ubanana, and you shared your incredible imagination in the sci-fi fantasy of Irada. You've written to speak out about stigmas. You've written in the space of leadership. And there's so much that you shared over the years with your audiences and your live shows. And this book from 2014, I think having this conversation was very, very necessary for us to get almost like a backstory on the brilliance of where you've come today, full
Thank you.
circle, to give us what you give us every single time you are on screen. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Of
And
course.
Nellie Belly is trying to say hello to Auntie Leslie.
I know, Nellie Belly, the dog of the hour.
Nellie, you want to say hi? Nellie Belly knows Auntie Leslie's voice.
Yes.
Um,
You'd be
so yeah,
surprised at the audience I have in animals, right? Like, because many animals will sit on their owner's laps and listen, and they do recognize my voice.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. We went over, I guess, a little bit. I've never shared this with you, so this is just another little kind of, or another prism in an area that really had my heart. I mean, I wrote this book because I knew that this could help. But Think and Grow Rich was so big, and I had other things that I could also add because that was written 100 years ago. So yeah, I'm glad you were all here. Thank you.
Everybody
Thank
was
you.
so wonderful.
Yes,
As
thank you.
always, I loved the audience that we have here every Tuesday. They're interactive. You can tell from the comments that they're enjoying the conversation. They're paying attention to the conversation. And I want to thank you for one last thing, which was in the beginning. You explained what mastermind meant. And I see this word everywhere. And why did I never think to ask you or even to look up the meaning of this myself? But I love how you share it's coming to the table and you share something and I share something. And you've been at the table for so long that you've learned so very much, right? Um, but it's never been about I'm the master of my mind and therefore all of yours. No,
No,
it's
no, because I had the dark night of the soul too. Remember that my 33-year-old marriage, exploded without my choosing. It's not a good idea to do things without Leslie knowing. I became the devil on earth, okay, because that was not going to be okay. So I've had the really difficult side, the low side, the side when you're considering unaliving. Like, so I have been in that place, but that was 25 years ago. And so I've had all this time to three steps forward, two steps back, three steps forward, two steps back. And so really for 20-25 years I've been healing and getting better and better and better, and just so enjoy that you like this too, that you're
very
finding
much
good
so.
value.
Thank you for everything you have taught me over these years. We've been friends. So I'm going to move you backstage and
Okay.
right there. That was truly such a wonderful conversation. That's the thing that I love about the person behind the pen. We we talk about everything, right? Everything that could possibly be in a book. There's so many genres, there's so many stories, there's so much knowledge to be shared, so many point of views. And you imagine trying to have a conversation for an hour and making sure to not forget all the points that you want to hit. That's the thing with a book, right? All the points that you do want to hit are in there. You don't have to turn in that final manuscript until it's done, and everything is there. Uh, I continue to be filled by all that I get to do with my life. Again, I thank my kids for being here. I thank Leslie. Um, and I thank most of all, well, my husband and Nellie and my son, but God for all the opportunities He sent my way. Last year, the first year in business for Guiding Brilliant Writers, we launched 8 books. I was sitting today talking to someone, and it didn't occur to me that with what's transpiring now, we are set to launch 8 books this year, and we are into the what the second half of the second quarter of the year. So keep an open mind, keep an open heart. Do believe in the power of your mind. Do believe in the power of the people around you, being able to raise your vibration, because choosing the people that I want around me has done that for me. If you're not following Leslie, you need to follow her. If you're not checking out her show, Think and Grow Rich, on Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern, you need to go check that out as well. Guiding Brilliant Writers Publishing is, of course, a sponsor because we believe in the need to have these conversations. So before I close, the author school is ongoing right now for the next book, Men, Money, and Mental Health. This is now going to be published in September. There was mention of June, but we're moving this publication to September in time for Suicide Awareness Month. Again, the book is Men, Money, and Mental Health. And if you're interested in putting your story in this book, please reach out to me. You can send me a DM via LinkedIn. Have an absolutely wonderful rest of your week, everyone, and we will see you next week on The Person Behind the Pen.